Our top story tonight: Venezuelan President Nicolás Maduro has arrived in the United States and is now in New York to face federal criminal charges after being captured by U.S. forces following a major military operation in Venezuela. CBS News Plus One Maduro and his wife, Celia Flores, were flown to New York late Saturday evening, hours after American forces carried out strikes and operations in Caracas that resulted in his capture. CBS News officials say the couple landed at Stewart International Airport northwest of New York City before being transported to federal custody. Video footage and eyewitness reports show Maduro in handcuffs and escorted by law enforcement personnel as he arrived on American soil. ABC 7 New York Plus One. The move comes after years of legal actions and an updated indictment filed in the Southern District of New York. According to the U.S. Attorney General, Maduro and Flores will face multiple criminal charges, including narcoterrorism conspiracy and cocaine importation conspiracy. The indictment, which has been unsealed in federal court, also alleges involvement in weapons offenses and other illegal activity linked to drug trafficking. VPM, this is a rare instance in which a foreign leader has been brought directly into the United States to face trial on federal charges. The legal proceedings are expected to unfold in the coming days, and officials say a formal arraignment could take place early next week. App News President Donald Trump publicly described the operation in strong terms, saying the United States will now oversee Venezuela for a transitional period, a statement that has drawn both support and criticism from global leaders and political analysts. BS News critics of the operation argue that capturing a sitting president in this manner raises serious questions about international law, national sovereignty, and diplomatic norms. Legal experts have noted that courts may still proceed with the charges, but the method of capture is likely to be a subject of intense debate. The Washington Post supporters of bringing Maduro to New York argue that long-standing allegations linking his government to drug trafficking and narco-terrorism must be addressed, and that holding him accountable under U.S. law sends a strong message about criminal justice and cross-border enforcement. VPM as Maduro begins his legal journey in the United States. Reactions are unfolding across the world. Some governments have condemned the U.S. action as an infringement on Venezuelan sovereignty, while others have welcomed the move as a necessary step in combating international drug trafficking. The Guardian here in New York: authorities are preparing for a high-profile trial that is likely to draw global attention. Security at federal facilities has been heightened, and officials say the case will proceed through regular judicial processes in the Southern District of New York. App News, we will continue to follow this developing story and bring you updated, verified information as events continue to unfold. As the legal process begins in New York, attention is now shifting to what this case could mean beyond the courtroom. Legal experts say the charges against Nicolás Maduro are serious and wide-ranging, built on years of investigation by U.S. federal authorities. Prosecutors allege that Maduro used his position of power to protect and enable large-scale drug trafficking operations, accusations that his government has long denied. What makes this case unusual is not only the nature of the charges, but the fact that a sitting head of state has been brought to the United States to face them. That alone places this case in rare territory, both legally and diplomatically. In federal court, the process is expected to follow standard criminal procedure. Maduro is likely to be formally arraigned, advised of the charges, and given the opportunity to enter a plea. His legal team is expected to challenge both the jurisdiction of the court and the circumstances under which he was brought to the United States. Those challenges could take months or even years to resolve. Meanwhile, international reaction continues to build. Several governments in Latin America and Europe have called emergency meetings, with officials expressing concern about the precedent this case may set. Some leaders argue that the capture and transfer of a foreign president could destabilize international norms. Others say the charges reflect long-standing allegations that could no longer be ignored. Inside Venezuela, the situation remains tense. Supporters of Maduro have condemned the move, calling it an attack on national sovereignty. Opposition figures, however, say the arrest represents a turning point and an opportunity for political change after years of economic collapse and social unrest. The future leadership of Venezuela is now uncertain. Analysts say any transition will depend on internal political dynamics, international negotiations, and the ability of institutions to maintain order. Back in the United States, security has been tightened around federal buildings in New York. Officials say preparations are in place for protests, demonstrations, and intense media scrutiny as the case moves forward. For American officials, the message is one of accountability. They argue that no individual, regardless of position, is above the law when accused of serious international crimes. Critics counter that the method used to bring Maduro to New York could complicate diplomatic relations for years to come. At this moment, much remains unresolved. The court has not yet ruled on key legal motions. The international response continues to evolve, and the long-term impact on U.S.-Latin American relations is still unclear. What is clear is that this case will be closely watched around the world, not just for its outcome, but for what it signals about power, law, and accountability in the modern global system. We will continue to follow developments closely and bring you verified updates as this story unfolds. As the case moves forward, legal analysts are now examining one of the most critical questions surrounding this moment: how the U.S. justice system handles a defendant who until recently held absolute power over a sovereign nation. In American courts, the principle is straightforward. Once a defendant is in federal custody, the process follows established law. Status, title, and political history do not alter the structure of the case. However, in practice, cases like this are never ordinary. Maduro's defense team is expected to argue that he is protected by head of state immunity, a doctrine that has historically shielded foreign leaders from prosecution in other countries. U.S. prosecutors, on the other hand, are likely to argue that such immunity does not apply to allegations involving international drug trafficking and criminal conspiracy. That legal debate alone could shape the future of international law. If the court allows the case to proceed without recognizing immunity, it could signal a shift in how global accountability is enforced. If immunity is upheld, it could limit the scope of similar prosecutions in the future. Beyond the courtroom, there is the geopolitical impact. Latin American leaders are watching closely, aware that today's precedent could influence tomorrow's diplomacy. Some governments fear increased instability. Others see a message that corruption and criminal activity will no longer be tolerated, regardless of political power. Inside Venezuela, uncertainty continues. Economic activity remains fragile. Public institutions are under strain, and ordinary citizens are caught between political divisions, economic hardship, and an unclear path forward. International organizations have begun discussing humanitarian assistance and monitoring mechanisms, anticipating possible unrest or displacement as Venezuela navigates this transition period. For the United States, officials are walking a careful line. They emphasize respect for due process, judicial independence, and transparency. At the same time, they face mounting pressure to justify the operation that led to Maduro's arrival in New York. This balance between enforcement and diplomacy will define how this moment is remembered. Was it a turning point for accountability, or a flashpoint that reshaped international relations? That answer will not come quickly. Trials take time, appeals take longer, and history takes even longer to judge. For now, what matters most is that the process unfolds within the rule of law, without political interference and with full transparency. We will continue to bring you verified updates, legal developments, and global reactions as this unprecedented case continues. Thank you for staying informed.